So, a really important question that we have to ask ourselves at this point is what happens to the Vancouver Titans and the San Francisco Shock after GOATS? They're the two best GOATS teams right now. Clearly. There's no question about it. They've given us the two best finals I think we've seen in Overwatch League history. But what if GOATS goes away? Well, let's talk about it. We all know what GOATS is, so I'm not going to worry about that. We all know. That's not what we're here for. We've talked about it enough. I'm here to talk about why they'll still be good. Both these teams will still be top tier teams when GOATS goes away. Even if it's a year from now. Even if GOATS is still there here and there, but there's bunker comps and 222 and Dive is back with Tracer Genji. Let me run through these teams. So I'm going to start with Vancouver Titans. Uh, Sorry about that. The Vancouver Titans, we know, almost everyone knows, was Runaway. That was a team, it's a fabled team in Overwatch esports. Everyone knows who they are. If you don't know who they are, you've probably heard of them. You probably know that they wear the pink sweaters, right? You probably know that they've been around for a long time, even if you don't know who they are. All right, let's get this out of the way. When it comes to being meta-proof, there are a few players that you can kind of ignore. Janu, Diva. There's almost always going to need to be a Diva, right? In every meta we've had, almost always there's a Diva. Whether it's just in some points, just in some parts of the map, maybe you flex your Diva onto a Sombra at times. Maybe you flex her onto Zarya like used to happen. But there's always going to need to be that player there. Similarly, main support, aka Lucio, as we know it, used to be Mercy, then it transitioned in later parts of Season 1 of Overwatch League to Lucio. But Lucio has always been there for dive, for the speed boost, for the peel onto the Ana and Zenyatta. Lucio's always been there. Very similar, right? So let's just get these out of the way. Janu, Slime, they're gonna be there. They're really good. And their positions aren't going anywhere, and even if they do, I'm sure they can play other roles. Positive. Even though I haven't seen it, we can tell because they're smart. They know how to position. They know how to communicate with that team, with those players. All right, so let's get that out of the way. Twilight, the other support. We've seen the guy on Moira. We've seen him on Ana. We've seen him on Zen. What else do you need him to play? Maybe Baptiste. He's good on that. Promise. He's got aim. He's probably the best Zen in the league. We're talking about the guy that dethroned Jonak, in my opinion, as the best Zen in the league right now. That guy's not going anywhere. Not quickly, at least. We're going to see him, even if the meta changed tomorrow. I mean, it won't. It's not going to change in Stage 3. We know that. Might change in Stage 4, at least partially. He ain't going anywhere. All right. Can't forget about Hureg. I don't know if Hureg has a place on this team. I've thought that for a while. He's traditionally a Pharah and a soldier main. You've got Stitch and Haxall. I don't know where he's going to go. Let's not talk about Hureg. It's not important. Somin Su. Probably the best Zarya in the league. Guy used to be a Doomfist specialist. Back in Apex, let's see. Apex, no. Sorry. Back in Overwatch Contenders Korea 2018, Season 2, when Runaway won the Grand Finals over Kongdu Panthera, Stitch played Zarya for the team. Somin Su is there. He's on the roster. He's a Doomfist specialist. Okay. Well, in the next 6 months, he picked up Zarya and showed that he's better than Stitch on Zarya. Maybe it was a choice. Maybe they want to keep Stitch crisp on Tracer Widow. I don't know. We'll see. But he's really good. And he's probably the second best Zarya in the league. What this shows is that this guy can go from being a specialist and pick up another hero because he wants it. He wants to start. Okay? That kind of guy isn't going anywhere. Even if Zarya isn't needed in the next metas, he's not going anywhere. He'll be on this roster and he'll play a key role. So now I want to talk about the 3 remaining members. Bumper, Stitch, Haxall. They're guys you hear a lot about because they're the core members that have been on this team since they broke out with Haxall as their new support DPS in Apex Season 2. And I think I have to real quick just give a brief history of what Runaway is as a team. And Overwatch back then was not as static as we see it now. No player was as specialized as we see it now. Metas were not as stable as we see them now. In Apex Season 2, Genji Nanoblade with Ana was pretty much your win condition. You almost ran it all the time. But there was so much flexibility. And this roster, which besides the 3 I just listed, was Cox at support, who also had a phenomenal DPS on Pharah, and Soldier 76. Runner, the guy the team is pretty much named after, who owned it, who ran it, on Lucio. And Kaiser, what can you say? The Kaiser, legendary guy. He just was in the grand finals of Overwatch 2019 Contenders Korea Season 1. Phenomenal player. One of the best Reinhardts we've ever seen. On this team, these players changed roles so much. All the time. Basically, there was a set dive meta, but it was so much more flexible. Teams were changing point to point, switching up 2 or 3 characters. And that's something you really have to understand when you think about, okay, Bumper back then played mainly off tank, but he also played like 5, 6, 7 heroes significantly. Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about Bumper. Bumper is a guy. His image right now perplexes me, honestly. First of all, we go into season 2, of Overwatch League, and it's like, this guy's nuts. He's making flashy plays. He's doing it all. 360 shatters. He's doing the sneak shatters when the team comes in. It's like, what? This guy's a madman. Everyone loved it. And now I think I don't go on Reddit really. I don't know if this is just a narrative there. But he's like got this image now of a guy who's carried. Not true, by the way. So I think that what happened is the broadcast talent kind of switched the narrative. They're like, yeah, Bumper's nuts. But let's talk about the rest of his team. Fair enough. We're talking about Twilight. We're talking about Somin Su, how good they are. We're talking about Janu and Janu bombs, right? Good, yeah. I just don't know where we got sidetracked enough. It was an overcorrection. You know, you're driving, you're making a lane change, whatever, your car slips, you overcorrect. And now some people like Bumper's carried. They don't like him. I don't know. He's cocky. So, it's fun. He's got a great attitude. He's also a really nice guy. Everyone loves him. You can see it on their faces. He's known half these players for years. They're homies. Don't take what he says that seriously. You should go back and watch Apex trash talking videos, or even in League of Legends. OGN literally runs trash talk segments. It was so funny. Players said stuff they didn't really believe. It's all media. It's all hype. It's fun. Whatever. So his image right now kind of perplexes me. But this guy is legit. He's the real deal. Basically, Apex Season 2. This dude is Zarya Diva maining. He's also playing Roadhog. He played Winston. There was the Hollywood map of that series, map 2. He played Zarya, Diva, Winston on point 2, Roadhog on point 3. Are you kidding me? One map. He's doing all that. Okay. Even back then, too, this is a guy, and not just Bumper, but Runaway was a team. They lose a member or two, it was just like they do it now. They lose a member or two, they're throwing ultimates at the other team. The other team's like, what the hell's going on? They did this against Lunatic High. You know, all right, Haksal dies on Genji, Nano Boost Bumper on Zarya, and kill like 2, 3 people, get a grab shatter or something going, even if it's just on one or two people. And all of a sudden you flip the tides. They were doing this back then. And Bumper was a huge part of this. So kind of talked about season 2 of Apex. Let's jump to season 4. They struggled a lot in season 3. Let's just go straight to season 4, where they appeared in the grand finals against GC Busan. The team switched up, okay? You've now got runner coaching. So who's the Lucio player? It's Bumper. Surprise. Seriously, this guy named Tizzy joins that main tank. Tizzy's great. Janu joins on Diva for off tank. This is when Diva was pretty much 100% ran all the time to replace Bumper. But Bumper is so good. He deserves a spot on this team. Where do we put him? I don't know if he said, I'll try it. I don't know if he said, I want to be main support. We don't know. I don't know. But that's what happened. And he's a pretty good Lucio. He wasn't the best, but they made it to the finals of the most competitive league in Overwatch, the top of the top. And he did good. Not the best, but he did good. You know? So this guy now, he's played all this stuff. He actually started as a DPS player. Then he went to off tank. Then he went to support, main support with Lucio. Now going into Overwatch Contenders 2018, Tizzy leaves the team. They pick up Slime. Cox retires. They pick up Slime and Twilight at support. Bumper's still on the team, but he goes to main tank. Season 1 Contenders of 2018. There's already talk of Bumper being one of the best main tanks in Korea. Overwatch League's going on. Not enough people are paying attention anymore. But this is going on. And they're actually one of the best teams. They lost to X6, I believe it was X6, who ended up winning that season. And it was a really disappointing loss for them. But then they came back in season 2 and won it all. And Bumper is looking amazing. So it's not like this guy is carried. They didn't have the same GOATS playstyle back then as they do now because GOATS was fundamentally played differently. Brigitte could still shield bash Orion through shield, you know? But we have this guy who I don't know what most people think of him. This is just kind of what I see his public image being right now. Is being carried. And I'm like, no. No way in hell he's being carried. Yeah, he gets a lot of resources. So do a lot of the best players of all time in regular sports too, not just esports. I mean, you look at Faker in League of Legends. How often was Bengi floating around mid lane? All the time. All the time. It's just what is how you play. It's smart. You funnel your resources where you need them most and what gives you the most success. It's different for every team. That's enough about Bumper though. We got to move on. Haksal and Stitch, I'm going to breeze over this pretty briefly. Haksal, we've seen him. He's probably the best Brigitte in the world, if not second best to Rascal. But like his Pharah and his Genji, they're the real deal. We've seen him mess around on the Genji. That's not Haksal's Genji. Trust me. Go look up some highlight reels. This guy's a monster. He's equally as good as Who Are You in the days of Lunatic High winning back-to-back championships. You know? So, he's the real deal. Whether he stays on Brigida for now or not, doesn't matter. He's got a place in this meta. He's meta proof. He's got a place in the next meta too. Trust me. Stitch is the same. We haven't seen a lot of Stitch, but this dude is a Tracer and Widow god. He's gonna be up there with the top of the top. Whenever we start seeing this kind of play, say Bjolby comes back, Striker comes back for Shock, Stitch is gonna be up there. He may not be the best. I don't know right now. It's been a while. But he will be in the conversation as one of the best. He will do what he has to do for this team, and I guarantee it. Okay, let's go on to Shock. San Francisco Shock came out in stage 1 of 2019 season pretty shaky. They had all the right pieces, but they weren't all quite there yet. We didn't have Violet in there yet. We still had Sleepy for the first couple weeks. And then even after that, you got to slot this player in. You might be running scrims with him, but on the stage, it's a little different. We also had Architect at Brigida starting. Well, now it's Rascal. Let me get into this. Let me go through it one by one. I'm going to spend a little less time on each player because now it's kind of the same talking points. Super is a guy who came in season 1 of Overwatch League looking good, promising is what we like to say. Not the best, but good. He's probably the best main tank now, and it happened fast. It happened in stage 1 of 2019. He came in looking kind of weird, didn't really know what was going on. Probably the whole team felt this way. It was a conversation thing. It's a communication thing. It's an ideological positioning and strategy thing that you kind of get used to. It could be a synergy thing with a new lineup too. Well, now he's getting huge value whenever he dies. Some of the best shatters, some of the best positioning, fantastic defense, as well as offense. I don't know what else needs to be said. Choi Hyo Bin, their diva player. Stage 1 finals of this year, he looked really good. And then he would just make these critical mistakes. And it was hard to say that he wasn't still one of the better divas in the league, but there was just these mistakes kind of riddling the whole way. Well, now we see those mistakes. Every player makes mistakes, but not to the degree that he was making them before. He was an all-star in the stage 2 finals. Okay? He's making plays in the neutral. One of the classic neutral plays is you throw a Discord orb on someone, you try to pick him with your Zen, try to send your diva after him. Note's another notoriously good diva at this. Neutral being when you have no ults, you try to make a play. What do you make a play? You take your diva with some of the best DPS for her health and movement, and you send her into dangerous situations to try to get a pick and then come back out. Well, he's really good at that, and he's really good at positioning his bombs, both around shatters and graviton surges, and even just for zoning. So this guy, he's not going anywhere. It's the same thing like I said with Janu. There's always going to be a role for the diva player somewhere in the lineup. Moth and Violet, kind of want to skim over it a little bit because it's the same thing as Twilight and Slime. But I would like to say that Moth is very good at being both a defensive and aggressive Lucio, and that Violet being one of the most feared, we heard he was kind of the guy Vancouver was looking at and worried about in those stage 2 playoffs, and he made some critical picks. This guy is going to be fantastic on whatever character he's playing. We've already seen him play a lot of them. Okay? I'm gonna hit a bench player real quick. Striker, because a lot of people probably haven't seen him, or we just haven't seen him in a while. All the people that watched from season 1. The dude who used to be on Boston, who is in the conversation for best tracer of season 1 with Sabiel B. 100%. The dude is amazing. Amazing with his pulse bombs, with his accuracy, with his blink usage, and his conserving his rewind. When this guy comes out on Widowmaker, after he doesn't really play Widowmaker, and becomes one of the best in a few weeks, that's a serious player. That's a guy who says, I'm stepping up. And he's also a guy that could start on most teams in the league. He said, you know what? I want to go with Krusty, my old coach at Boston, because probably this is a guy he can believe in. If you're willing to sit on the bench of a team and you can start on so many other teams, that's important. That means a lot is going on behind the scenes that's going right at San Francisco Shock. All right, let's talk about Rascal real quick. Rascal is a guy who went through some struggles in season one. I don't think he had a very good public image, but anyone watching from Apex knew this guy has flexibility and leadership. Bergering trusted in this guy. Bergering was one of the best DPS for a long time in this game. So Rascal was always projectile DPS. Sometimes he'd flex onto a May. He always did that kind of weird stuff. He's always been like that. I really like to think of him in the same vein as Liberal from NYXL. Primarily a DPS player, but he's also got these niche picks, and he's just really flexible in general. You can put the dude on anything. And it speaks volumes that he took Architect's starting spot as Brigitte. Not because Architect was a mechanically bad Brigitte, but Rascal's better. And he's clearly a very cerebral player. And he's more flexible than Architect. And he's probably the best Baptiste we've seen in the league. Again, meta proof. What can you say? Finally, let's finish off with Sinatra. Probably the best Zarya in the league. Maybe Zarya isn't in the picture in the future. It doesn't matter that he has Striker on his team who's a better Tracer player. Probably. What matters is Mr. 150K, the memes from season 1, all aim no brain. This guy came out in season 2 and almost instantly was clearly one of the best Zaryas. So he's hungry to learn. He said, I don't want to be benched. I don't want to be traded. I want to be here. I want to start. I'm going to learn Zarya, and I'm going to be the best at it. Yeah, he gets a lot of resources, just like Bumper does. But that's how the team wins. That's their style, and they know it. He takes these crazy wide angle flanks, and he takes these crazy high ground angles, and his team is there to help him. And they believe in him, and his positioning and movement are phenomenal. That is not all aim, no brain. That's a lot of brain going on. Big, wrinkly brain. All right? A guy like that who can come out playing a completely different hero in a completely different style. After all that criticism, that says a lot about him. He's staying. He's not going anywhere. I don't care if Zarya goes away. I don't care if he's not as good on Tracer as Striker. He'll be somewhere on this team. He's got a spot. I want to close this out just really quickly. I want to talk about the theory behind building a team. San Francisco Shock have something really right going on, and so do the Vancouver Titans. They're different in a lot of ways. But the way that these staffs and these coaches look at how a team operates, it's different than most other teams in the league, I would say. I want to take a look really quickly at Paris Eternal. This is a team that we knew was a GOATS team. Some people had them super high in their power rankings because we're like, going into the season, it's going to be GOATS. So let's build a GOATS team. And the critique was always, well, they're not that good. They don't look that good in other metas on paper. But they'll be good in GOATS. Well, they're not that good in GOATS. We all heard the rumors they were losing to contenders teams. That wasn't surprising. Contenders teams are playing the evolving form of GOATS on stage. Well, not on stage. because it's contenders. But they're playing these competitive games that the pros and Owl were just kind of not doing. So it's not that surprising. But when they came out and they looked good and then they fell off, and this is your team designed to be the best GOATS team from the best GOATS region, what do you do with that team moving forward? They're not going to be as good in any other meta. I mean, maybe they will be because they haven't been that good on GOATS, but I doubt it. They're in trouble. They're in trouble. So you can't just build a team around a meta. You got to go big picture. You've got to think, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? How do I make my weaknesses my strengths? And I want to think about this really quickly in maybe a competitive traditional sports sense. Right now, you've got Zion Williams coming into the NBA, clearly the first round draft, number one first round draft pick. Everyone knows it. This is a guy who can get into the paint, drive, dunk, block. He's got a lot of presence. You know what you're getting with him. Well, what do you do with the players around him? You need shooters that can stretch the field, stretch the court. You need people on the outside that can pull the pressure off of him. You need screen players, your big guys that run good screens that allow him to get in without having to do it all on his own. These are the things the traditional sports teams look at. And maybe he's the number one draft pick, but maybe he's not right for your team. Personally, when I look at the Milwaukee Bucks, who are in the Eastern Conference playoffs right now, who have Giannis Antetokounmpo, Giannis does everything that Zion will do in the future, but he's more developed. He's already a superstar. There's no room for a Zion on the Milwaukee Bucks. They wouldn't want him, no matter what, even if they had the pick. It just doesn't make sense. They might get him for trading purposes, but when you're looking at a team in Overwatch, you have to say, I don't want everyone who's an all-star on this team. You can't do it. And I think that's what San Francisco understood. And that's why they're the best team in Overwatch right now. Krusty knows. Well, I don't want Bumper and Sinatra. How are you going to play like that? You can't give the resources to either one all the time. Or to both of them all the time, I should say. He understands what's going on. That's what made this team that is not necessarily going into the season the best players. But he developed them to be the best team. And being the best team is all that matters. And that's why I think that both of these teams are meta-proof. And there's no reason to think they won't be the two best teams, if not in the best top five, going forward outside of GOATS.